The situation in Yemen has been devastating, to say the least. As Mark Lowcock, head of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, put it, the situation in Yemen, today, right now, to the population of the country, looks like the apocalypse. Let's look at how exactly this situation came to be. First, some background. Yemen, if you are not aware, is a Middle Eastern nation with a Sunni majority. Like most Sunni majority nations, it is a strong ally to Saudi Arabia. That is, its constitutional government is a strong ally to Saudi Arabia. The whole conflict in Yemen has left a good portion of the nation, including the constitutional capital of Sana'a, under control by a rebel group known as the Houthis. The relocated capital under the Houthis is now Aden. More on that later. But first, before we get into the meat of the conflict, we must look a bit into Yemen's history. Once upon a time, not so long ago in the 80s, Yemen was split between North Yemen, which was allied with the US and Saudi Arabia, and South Yemen, which was backed by the USSR and Iran by association. Sana'a in the north became the political capital, and Aden in the south became the unofficial economic capital. We can already begin to see the divide that led to this Yemeni conflict. The US-backed north and the USSR-backed south mirror the US-backed government and the USSR/Iran-backed Houthis that are currently fighting in the war right now. And we could also see that the unification of north and south wasn't powered by anything special. The governments only really united because they found oil, which is never stable, and the fact that South Yemen was just too economically weak to stand on its own anymore. On top of all this political instability, we must also recognize that Yemen is a poor country. Before war broke out in 2015, almost half of all Yemenis lived below the poverty line, 2/3 of youths were unemployed, and social services were on the verge of collapse. In short, this war, like many others, came out of a very unstable context. Alright, now finally the crisis. The war being fought right now is between the internationally recognized government of President Abrada Mansour Hadi and the Houthi rebel movement. If you have not yet guessed, the Houthis, which are a Shia minority, are backed by Iran and Russia. Meanwhile, the government is backed by Saudi Arabia, a big coalition of Sunni majority nations, and reluctantly by the US, France, and UK. I say reluctantly because Saudi Arabia has been launching airstrikes on Houthi cities that are probably war crimes, and the US, UK, and France probably know. And that's not all the atrocities that have been done to innocent civilians. As stated earlier, 8,600 people have been killed and 49,000 injured since the conflict began in March 2015. Additionally, 20 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance in what is the world's largest food security emergency. About 2 million children are out of school, and perhaps worst of all, the conflict has fueled the world's worst cholera outbreak, according to the UN, with 500,000 suspected cases of cholera in the country, and on average, 5,000 new cases recorded every day. All this begs the question, how did the conflict start? Like many current conflicts in the Middle East, we need to look back at the Arab Spring uprisings in 2011. For Yemen, this event led to the ousting of President Saleh and the stepping up of the then VP Abrada Mansour Hadi. The Hadi regime was pretty disliked, and it reached a boiling point when he lifted fuel subsidies in July 2014, sparking Houthi backlash. Just a note, Houthis didn't come into the picture out of nowhere. They had taken up arms in the past over discrimination. Anyway, Houthis seized the capital city of Sana'a by September 2014, and some of the army split to join the Houthis. The Houthis gained more traction and reached Aden, where President Hadi was. Hadi was exiled into Saudi Arabia, where he helped launch the airstrike campaigns on Houthi territory that are still going on. The Saudis gave support because they thought Iran would support the Houthis, and of course, Iran joined the Houthis, because that's how it works. And now we have our classic Iran versus Saudi Arabia proxy war being played out in Yemen right now. To make matters better, Al-Qaeda also joined and got a lot of coastal territory. So, yeah. Honestly, the situation is a huge mess, and as far as the eye can see, there really is not much of an end in sight. Very little international attention has been given, for one. Be honest, how many times have you seen this on the news? Additionally, the battle lines have moved very little because the Houthis are, interestingly enough, too weak to really rule land alone, but too strong for the Saudis to defeat effectively. The UN just expects the Houthis to surrender, which is pretty unreasonable. From what I have seen, I think that reaching a reasonable peace offering with the Houthis can do a lot more than sitting back and letting the Saudis bomb them. After all, if the Houthis aren't fighting the Saudis, what other excuse do they have for the damage they have done? That's right, not a lot. Thanks for watching.